High fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home. Don Mattingly. Tucker waits one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here. He's gone. And the
Welcome back to another episode of TableSetters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined by my tag team partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's going on, dude? Psyched to be here. I got a question for you. So I went to the mall today, and I got to say, I can't remember the last time I've been in a mall. So I wanted to ask you, when was the last time you've been in a mall?
I actually was at the mall pretty recently. I do enjoy the mall. I enjoy Annie Ann's pretzels and a Cinnabon every once in a while. But I went to Smith Haven Mall with some of the students I work with. We did the mall field trip. So I feel like if I wasn't doing that on a work basis, I don't know the last time I've been to the mall. So it was more of a work trip than anything.
That was my thing. I was really trying to think back. When is the last time I was at a mall? For I don't know, for any reason, I guess. But I'm willing to bet at least 50% of our listeners, I would say, have not been in a mall for at least the last 3 years. Do you think that's a crazy thing to say?
No, I don't think it's a crazy thing to say. There is a big initiative here locally. I don't know if you saw the news about all the stuff they're doing to fix up Smith Haven Mall in Lake Grove, New York, throwing a lot of money at it to fix it. I don't know if you saw the news story drop on that.
No, I didn't. So we were at Walt Whitman Mall today. Easy for me to say. And I think it might have been the first time I was actually in that mall. And it's like a small mall. I'm used to Smith Haven. For all the Long Islanders that might be listening, it's a little bigger. And my wife's used to Roosevelt Field, which is enormous as well.
It's a monster mall, yeah.
Tiny little mall, though. Auntie Anne's was there. But, no lids. As a baseball fan with the season coming up, I was like, she asked me if I wanted to go to the mall and bring the kids. And I was like, yeah, first of all, we need to get out of the house. The kids have been sick, so we've been stuck in the house. And then in the back of my mind, without saying it, I was like, I'm going to get a new hat. And then we go there and no lids.
Dude, it's wild at lids. Last time I went there, the hats are almost $50 now. And my deal nuts. Now is I go to 47 brand and I'll wait for the deals to hit. And it's usually buy one, get one 30% off. And I like 47's hats better. And if lids, if you're out there, if you want to give us a sponsorship deal, maybe I'll change my tune a little bit. But
do you
I heard a dad joke about the mall, dude. If you want to hear it, you want to hear a dad joke?
Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So they call it the mall because it's not just one store, it's them all. So
oh man. I don't know if that's a dad joke or
the truth.
Like a little or like an elementary school joke.
It might be the truth though.
Do you go with like fitteds? Or is it always fitteds for you?
No, I'm a snapback guy nowadays. I have an oddly shaped head, and anytime I wear the fitted, my size is 7 3/4, and it just doesn't fit.
Is it really? Yours is 7 3/4.
Maybe 7 1/4. 7 1/4.
Okay, that sounds because I'm known for having a large head, as you might be able to see, and I'm pretty sure I'm a 7 3/4, and that's snug too.
Well, I have one right here. Actually, let me take a look at it right here for this hat.
And I don't think of you as having a big head, so I'd be very surprised. 7 3/4 for you would be a surprise.
Aren't the sizes traditionally in the hat too, or no?
Yeah, I think they should be right on the tag. No,
because I got the 4th of July hat from 2017 over here, and I don't see any size in here. But it is snug. I have to stretch it out.
I don't know. Okay, I like the flex fit nowadays. I feel like the flex fit are good, and they're sometimes a little cheaper. You get the legit fitteds, and these things are like you said, $45. Plus tax, it's crazy.
Well, I bought the World Series hat, and my choices were, obviously I won the World Series patch for the Yankee hat. I bought the snapback. I just like the way the snapback fits, and it's adjustable. Obviously, I like the way a snapback looks backwards too if you wear it. So I don't know as far as being a hat guy. But either way, we thank you guys for joining us here. We're going to be dropping 2 episodes today, so this is the first of 2. If you're listening, of course, this one's dropping first. Episode 61, episode 62 will be joining us, and probably a couple hours dropping on all your audio platforms with a special guest, Gerrit Sandler of the Texas Rangers radio broadcast. So looking forward to him talking about all things Texas Rangers and trying to get off the floor for what was a disappointing 2024 title defense of 2023, a big, exciting team. If you want to follow everything we're doing at TableSetters Pod on IG and on X, you guys asked us. You guys said you wanted someone from the Texas Rangers, and Devin delivered. We got someone in-house from 105.3 The Fan, Texas radio. So pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking very much forward to that. The Rangers, there's just one of those teams that there is a ton to talk about, like no shortage of questions to ask and conversations to be had. And just another reminder to go on top of Steve's as well. Go to YouTube if you can help us out. Subscribe there. That number is creeping up super slowly. Again, we are definitely more audio based, but if we're going to do it on YouTube, we also want to have some kind of following over there. So even if you plan on taking us in on Spotify, Apple, all those places, go give us a follow on there, a subscription as well. It'll help us out. And the other thing, we forgot to mention this last week, Dugout Mugs. Remember, we are affiliates of Dugout Mugs. I think we have some product on the way coming to us, so we can share some video of that. But if you want to help us out in that way and kind of get something for yourself at the same time, or maybe a baseball fan in your life, you can use the code TS10 to get an extra 10% off when you complete your purchase. We also have a link that's in our bios and other places if you want to use that, but just using the code TS10 is just as good. So if you're interested in that, go ahead. They have a lot of products. It's not just the mugs. If you go there, they've really expanded what they have. A small business that's kind of done a really good job. Everything made in the USA, which is kind of cool. So give them a follow and use our code.
And I also want to give a shout out to the Campbell Fighting Camels. They did reach out and they are sending over a swag bag for myself, and been following the Humps this weekend. Of course, not the best start on their end, but Chris Marks, been in contact with him. We're looking to get him on this show to talk all things college baseball. And, we've been back and forth. We'll work it out. Obviously, with the season starting, he's been busy and traveling and all that stuff. So roll Humps, all into the Fighting Camels. They're my squad now, and continuing to follow. And shout out to everyone that followed me at SGroundballTS on Twitter. All the Camels fans, came out in herds, dude. I have all these new followers on Interactive, one of the best fan bases in all of not just Major League Baseball or college baseball, sports in general, dude. They're firing on all cylinders on game day.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see, like, us. We really are just diving headfirst into the college game. We'll talk about it a little bit tonight, and it has attracted a little bit of a new following, which is kind of cool. And it wasn't necessarily our purpose, to kind of get new followers, but that's kind of something that's happening as well. And it's just a whole new thing to look at. And following that as well, not only do we have these 2 episodes today, but Wednesday night we'll be recording with the University of Delaware baseball coach Greg Mamula. So we're looking forward to that. That'll drop most likely Thursday morning. The Hens, Delaware Hens, just like the Campbell, they're kind of off to a rough start. So another game in between before we get Coach Mamula on. So we'll see how they do there at Maryland. But looking forward to having our first college coach on to discuss the game as well.
Yeah, I agree, man. It was a great get, and love the different flares and conversations about the game of baseball continuing to grow everywhere. And I watch a lot of college baseball this weekend. We have a lot of thoughts of that when we get to the meat of the order and discussing it. One of my biggest takeaways, and I guess we'll lead with that just quick before we get into all the meat of the order, Devin, is really the lack of coverage. It's come a long way. We've heard about it a lot. Obviously having been up and on and talking a bit about college baseball and having them be included in the show. But I didn't realize just how limited even the ESPN app is. When you click on it, there's no box score. You take for granted that any MLB game you watch during the day, you watch the live pitch. You can follow the games as you want to, see who's coming up. That's not the case for college baseball. There's some games that are just not listed on the app. You have to search for it. Me specifically, sometimes Campbell's games aren't listed on ESPN's app, so I have to go out of my way to download the Campbell app to follow their games and their athletics. And it's a mess, dude. ESPN's got to get on it.
Yeah, that was my big frustration, man. So you go to the ESPN app, you try to find some of the games you're looking at just to see what the score is. And then you click it to look at the statistics. All right, Wake Forest is killing it. Let me see how my boy Marek Houston is doing. And you can't click it. Even for a game of Wake Forest, top 25 team, a team that's front and center for years now in college baseball, I can't seem to see the goddamn box score, even though it's listed on the ESPN app. And then there's other games that just straight up aren't listed at all. Delaware played Florida Atlantic, 2 Division I schools. It's not like they're not Division I. 2 Division I schools playing. They were not on the ESPN app, even the score, all weekend long. And I'm sure there is some reason for that. My only guess is maybe it wasn't an ESPN Plus game. I noticed when I followed Delaware baseball on Twitter, they had the links and it took you to a Florida Atlantic website that could broadcast the game, just a single camera behind home plate. No score bug or anything like that. Kind of rough. But yeah, man, like I've heard about this, but as now we dive in a little more and become bigger fans, the frustration is real. Like, holy shit. Like this to me is a big deal. I could not believe it's as if we're following some sport that is only popular in some small country overseas that nobody in the United States. Seriously, that's
No,
what
I
it
agree
felt
with you.
like. And I guess as the season goes on and some of the bigger games come on, the coverage expands a little bit. But I've seen other people expressing the same frustrations. Some other big baseball accounts are doing the same thing as we are, like actively trying to get more into it and are right away frustrated with it. I know like ESPN Plus is the big one to follow college baseball. I think Flow Sports some people use, but I was reading apparently they don't have as much as the season goes on. So it's really ESPN Plus, and every once in a while hoping that there's a college game broadcasted on national television. I know MLB Network had one on, I think on Friday night or Saturday night, maybe both of those. But other than that, yeah, you really have to do your homework to be able to follow these games closely.
Yeah, and ESPN Plus is great because there's a lot of accessibility. But you mentioned the one camera angle. Sometimes they go up close on the batter, but it takes love and dedication. Shout out to Ben Upton, who's been covering for a long time. And like he was talking about, the coverage has gotten better. So I can only imagine what it was like a few years
Right.
ago
Yeah.
trying to find things out there. But I mean, you take for granted. I mean, we watch NCAA hockey, has come a long way as far as coverage goes. And obviously NCAA football at this point might as well be a major league sport at this point with the coverage and the gameplay and pre and post game situations. For baseball, maybe we'll get to that point, but I think it goes hand in hand. And I think continuing, we are a Major League Baseball podcast, but the popularity of college baseball will only help the popularity of Major League Baseball and help the fandom. If there is that pipeline that you can watch these stars, and especially the players we're going to be talking about today when we get to our reaction to opening weekend, that's a good thing that you can look forward to the draft class. We're going to be talking about the 2026 draft class with some players that are highlighted and looking forward to seeing where they'll wind up and being contributors pretty soon. And it starts with players like we saw last year coming into the league on such a short notice and like contributing to their major league squad pretty quickly. And it's a good thing for baseball if we can kind of get maybe an influx of money from Major League Baseball and toss it the way of NCAA and help the infrastructure of these TV. I mean, they got to get their own TV deals figured out. And we'll talk about that with Jarrett Sandler with the Texas stuff. But if they could throw some money in infrastructure with finding a way to prop them up, we look at this in all different spots. It's only good for baseball if NCAA has a spotlight on and it looks good, because if someone's watching for the first time, you want them to be enthralled and want to watch the product. And
Exactly
what I saw from ESPN Plus, you have to love baseball as gritty as possible. And for most people, they're going to turn the channel.
Yeah, like for two of us like that are committed to this, partly because we do this show, like we're gonna dig in and still get it done. But for the casual fan, we talk about the casual fan a lot, it seems. Like if they're just clicking on like, all right, nothing else is on, let me see this. Maybe I'll watch some college baseball. And that's what they get. Like, yeah, like you said, that's going to be flicked off real quick. I will say I'll give some love, not that this account needs it, but I've got to check it out more to see really what it's all about. But I've seen some people in the college baseball world raving about a YouTube account. The handle is @WheelsYT. And if you're listening to this and you're already a big college baseball fan, you're probably like, oh, yeah, we all know about this. But if you're similar to us and you're trying to kind of join us and just start to get into it more, it seems like this is a YouTube channel we want to check out. I'm guessing it's mostly like highlight packages that he puts together out there of all this different college baseball as well as other sports. But I mean, he has 689,000 subscribers. There's got to be a reason for that. Like that's a crazy number on YouTube. So I'm going to dig into that. And I'm guessing anyone else that's trying to get into the college game, that might be something that helps you as well.
So we're going to step into the batter's box and talk about all the news that we've missed on the in-between. And one of the biggest news to drop with one of the big free agents finding his home. All right, so one of the biggest dominoes have continued to fall here. And at this point, we're all getting ready for the season, less than a month at this point to really get our bags packed and start to look forward to real tangible baseball games. And Alex Bregman has officially signed with the Red Sox. And he is, at this point, he waited. He was patient. He got his 3-year, $120 million deal with opt-outs after 2025 and 2026. He turned down longer offers from the Tigers. We heard reportedly the deal was 6 years, $171.5 million. The Cubs apparently offered him 4 years, $120 million. He wound up choosing Boston's higher annual salary and honestly a prove-it deal at this point. this is a deal that's similar to Pete Alonso. It's like, all right, I'm going to go out there, prove it. I'm going to play in Fenway Park. And allegedly, a lot of the conversation skewed towards he liked the way his swing was conducive in Boston. I mean, a lot of conversation points. What does he add to the Red Sox? Of course, we will dive into that. What does it mean for the rest of the AL East? We'll dive into that. But there's conversations in-house that we'll talk about the drama that's already brewing up. Where is Alex Bregman going to play?
Yeah, we'll get there very soon. Yeah, I mean, to me, this is very reminiscent of Pete Alonso. High AAV deal, shorter term to kind of give yourself a chance to prove it, like you mentioned, and maybe get another big deal before you get to an age where no one's going to pay a lot. I don't know. We'll see. But it also reminds me of Boris's clients last year when you get waiting, and they have to take something short term with high AAV. So I don't know if players are going to start seeing Scott Boras a little differently depending on what level of talent they are, but I wouldn't be surprised. This is 2 years in a row now. A couple things stand out. I do think in addition to the crazy money, I mean, Alex Bregman, $40 million a year. I know it's short term, and I know a ton of it's deferred, but holy crap, that's a lot of money for Alex Bregman coming off of his, I think, worst season, if you look at it, which, you have to worry about, is he declining? Same kind of thing with Pete Alonso. Alonso got the $30 million a year for his first year, and then we'll see if he's back here for a second. And some people thought that was crazy. Alex Bregman's getting $30 million a year. I mean, $40 million a year for the next 3. Wow, that's big money. I do think he wanted to be in Boston. Alex Cora, obviously a guy he's familiar with from his time in Houston. So it makes some sense there. He also said that Dustin Pedroia, who was his favorite player for a long time, I guess talked to him several times and tried to recruit him there, which seemed to make a difference. I think the story about the Cubs and apparently Ricketts basically not wanting to defer money, we've talked our talk as fans about not loving tons of deferred money, like being okay with the idea, but just like there should be a limit. But if you are an owner of a team and these are the rules right now, like you better get with it, man. Like, if that's what really kept Bregman away from Chicago, that's pretty disappointing. Disappointing for the Tigers. That seemed to be a fit. They could have really used him there. You thought with AJ Hinch, maybe they'd have a leg up, but I mean, Alex Cora, like I said, same kind of connection there. So not surprised. I think it's a big signing for Boston. I just posted a clip of our interview with Joey Capone from ITM podcast, a Red Sox podcast that we did back in December, early on in free agency, December 12th, I think it was. And man, he hit it on the head back then. He was not a fan of the Bregman idea, mostly because of what the impact it might have on Rafael Devers, their franchise player, the face of their franchise, the one guy they decided to hold on to after letting Mookie Betts and Xander Bogaerts go. So, I think we have to focus on that conversation now. I was startled by the clip. There was about a 2-day honeymoon period of Bregman being in Boston, smiles, working on the double play combo with Trevor Story. We saw some video of that. And then all of a sudden, this clip comes out of Rafi Devers being asked by a reporter at spring training today, like, hey, if you're asked to DH, even sometimes, are you? I don't even think the reporter could get the whole question out. And Devers, even though his translator's sitting right there, I think just jumped ahead and goes, no, I'm a third baseman. I could not believe that. Did they not talk to this dude before this question? I mean, before this trade was made? I'm not trade. Sorry, free agent signing. I'm flustered right now talking about it. Clearly, your thoughts when you saw it?
Yeah, I mean, my original thought before the Devers stuff went down, by all reports, it seemed like he was going to play second base, and everyone looked at it as the Red Sox defense. They led the majors in errors last season, and everyone wants to talk about the Yankees having a bad defense. The Red Sox had a bad defense as well, so you add Bregman into that fold, and although he is prominently a third baseman, he would shore up second base for them there. And obviously a lefty-heavy lineup. He's a right-handed bat coming in there. He's a proven bat, builds the bridge for the younger guys eventually. It's not a long-term commitment. You mentioned the big financial thing for them. It's a lot of money in the right now, but for them, they got guys coming up from behind, and Bregman will be a long distant memory. Down the line, he'll be somewhere else, and they just have to pay right now. As far as the Devers thing, you mentioned it. He made it clear on Monday that he has no intention of moving off third base to accommodate Alex Bregman. And he was repeatedly saying, as you mentioned, I play third. He was saying no. The reporters were laughing about it a little bit. Like, can you get a translation for that? But I mean, this is interesting because Devers signed a 10-year, $313.5 million extension back in 2023. He's been frustrated with the team. Obviously, he had those comments last year about the lack of free agency movement. Now they've gone out and gotten a guy like Alex Bregman, and it seems like he's frustrated they would even consider shifting him. Obviously, past assurances from the front office that third base was his long-term spot. That's part of the reason he wanted to stay with the team. Obviously, no final decision has been made. Alex Cora is going to have to smooth it over. Alex Cora did come out and say roster choices will be made with the best interest of the team in mind. But this is a drama-filled situation that could blow up for a hand that isn't as sure as Alex Cora. With that being said, I think Cora will manage this. I think inevitably Bregman's probably going to play second base. Devers will be at third. But the problem now is that Devers was unwilling, because if you're a team-centric guy and you want to play third, you have the conversation behind closed doors. Don't put the team in the position saying you're unwilling. Just say like whatever's best for the team and state your case behind the scenes. I understand that you're committed. This feels like there's a rift between Devers and the front office, and it's not a good way to start. I mean, he's gonna be there for a decade now, dude. Devin, like this at this point, there has to be some mending of fences with Rafi Devers. He's your guy. Bregman is a short-term option at whatever position he's going to play. Devers is your franchise guy. You invested in him. You traded Mookie. You moved on from every other player. You recognize Devers is your franchise guy. You need to make sure that he's on board with what the plan is, because other guys are coming up, by the way. Eventually, his position may change, and he may not be star of the show for them as he ages a little bit. When Christian Campbell comes up and Roman Anthony is taking the spotlight, he's going to have to be a team player. And that, to me, is maybe it's not going to be an issue this year. Bregman just acquiesces and plays second, but eventually it'll come to pass where Devers is going to have to make an exception and maybe not play third his whole career.
Dude, it's messy now. Like I said, you had 2 or 3 days of the front pages in Boston saying, like, Boston's back. We think Boston's back. The Red Sox are back. And now it's just like, uh-oh. This word unwilling keeps on coming up. We just got done talking about the Brian Cashman interviews, basically airing out the Yankees' dirty laundry for whatever reason, and saying that Gleyber Torres, and he used the word, was unwilling to move to third base to accommodate Jazz Chisholm at second. So, like, this keeps on happening. We're going to talk about Marcus Stroman probably right after this conversation. It might even bleed right into it, being unwilling to move to the bullpen. So, yeah, I think when this trade was made, there was a lot, including myself, of like, there was all those like, all right, here's the Red Sox lineup, right? And a lot of us were like, yeah, no, that's not going to be the lineup. Another move's going to be made here. Like, all right, Masataka Yoshida, it feels like the Red Sox haven't embraced him anyway. He'll be traded, right? Then that'll open up the DH spot a little bit, right? Okay, Cassis and maybe Devers can DH, share a little bit of first base. Bregman moves to third, and your stud Christian Campbell goes to second. Like you mentioned, Bregman's not here for all that long, 3 years. But here's the thing, man. Like, Christian Campbell is not the type of prospect to be down another 3 years. And he's not a guy that you should be bringing up to kind of be a guy that you move around and play sparingly. Like, this dude, the ascension he made and the hype he has behind him, he's got to play. Like, don't do what the Orioles have done now for 2 freaking years, where they just kind of, mess with these guys like Heston Kjerstad and like, oh, yeah, you're a starter. No. We're going to give you some other time, send you back down. Oh, you tear it up. We'll pull you back up, back and forth. We're going to sign another 20 outfielders, and maybe you play, maybe you don't. Oh, we could trade you for an obvious need in the pitching staff, but no, we'll hold on to you and just mess with you, dick around with you a little bit more. Like, don't do that to this guy and a Roman Anthony, all these guys that are coming up. Like, you need to be smart about this. And I don't know. I mean, it's not like they just jumped the gun right away. This is a late signing, like as spring training is starting. So they've had time to think about it. And I do wonder still if there's another move to be made here. I mean, obviously, there's been all kinds of Tristan Cassis rumors. But the problem is, even if any of these rumors of trades are true, whether it be Yoshida or Cassis to make room, that still involves moving Devers to a different position, which he just said out in front of everybody, yeah, like, no, I'm not going to do that. So there's a problem no matter what your next move is. There's been these Dylan Cease trade rumors with Boston that apparently they're in discussions and might be able to move some guys out of Boston to make room for the younger guys that way. But again, no matter what the move is made, you still have to probably convince Devers to move from third to accommodate all the guys you want. Mainly Christian Campbell being able to play second sometime this year. Like, I think that's the expectation. It doesn't have to be in the beginning of the season, but it's not 3 years away. So I don't know what's next. Like you said, Cora didn't sound like he was willing necessarily to appease Devers. Like he said something along the lines of like, it's a different GM here now than when you kind of re-upped. So the expectation is not necessarily the same. Like this guy might not see you as the longtime third baseman. But another thing I'll say is, even if Devers is not the greatest third baseman, and I know Boston's had a lot of defensive problems, which is another part of this discussion. For them to take the next step, they want to be a better defensive team. Devers does take pride in his defense. Joey Capone alludes to that in the clip that I put up on Twitter. Has, as far as like, he takes that job very seriously, and when he's doing really well, he takes a lot of pride in it. And when he's doing poorly, he like really kicks himself in the ass. Like he's hard on himself. So that plays a part of, I think, what we're seeing from Devers, having that pride. These guys are prideful people, man. Like, they take pride in their work. So I'm not exactly surprised. And anybody's guess what the next move is.
No, it's going to be interesting. And I think we're going to see a diametric difference between Alex Cora and Aaron Boone, because it feels like they're completely different styles as far as not acquiescing. Boone, obviously a player's manager, and Cora is in his own way, but it feels like Cora takes no shit. And I think Cora is going to take this head on. He's probably going to talk about it in the media. And you got to remember, Rafael Devers, like we talked about last year, was unhappy with what the team did or didn't do going into the season. I guess punting is the word for it. We discussed it on the opening of the season that we thought the Red Sox they weren't exactly rebuilding, but they were just kind of like, they were treading water. And then obviously Jarren Duran came out and did his thing. They were surprisingly good offensively, and they're busting the door open. The interesting part of the strategy, and it is a good problem to have, of course, because it feels like some of these prospects are ahead of schedule, is they're going to have to make a decision because they have a logjam. You mentioned similar to the Baltimore Orioles, where you have positions that feel like they're filled by 2 or 3 guys. They have an opportunity to kick open that door, bust open the window, whatever euphemism you want to use for opening up this championship window. Remember, Boston's a big market. They want to win. I understand they have a few rings under their belt, but this is a city that wants to win. And if they have the opportunity, we may see some of these prospects that are highly touted, felt like they were untouchable, be, I guess, strung out there for a move that maybe makes sense to put them in a window that makes them a favorite right now in the American League. Because you have to consider this. We will talk about the preview of the season, but the American League is wide open. The Yankees are right now the formidable favorite, I would assume, as the reigning and defending American League champions. But are they really that much better than everyone thinks that they should be? Obviously, losing Juan Soto, they did all the stuff with, plan B, as Cashman said, with Bellinger and Fried, and making the moves that they did. But if the Red Sox were to find another way and trade for a starting pitcher top of the line, and you add Bregman to this lineup, and you add the exciting youth in there, are the Red Sox really that worse? You know what I mean? Like that's the other thing. If you know what I'm saying? Like, if you invest in this and recognize that they may move on from, listen, we're not going to wait for Christian Campbell. Let's see if we can get a boatload for him. You know what I mean? Like the shifting perspective is so interesting to me, because you have to take the opportunity to win a championship when you can. And I'm sure mortgage in the future might have been a thing that they didn't want to consider. But now that if you watch this happening, all of a sudden you add Bregman in the short term. If he's going to hang around and not opt out of the first 2 years, maybe you want to win a World Series in this window. And I think Bregman obviously ups their chances for that, because we know he's a winning caliber player, and his bat makes a difference. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, this past season was the first time in his career that he didn't go to the ALCS, which is just wild to think about. Yeah, I don't know. The idea you said of like getting something for a Campbell instead,
or Roman
is
Anthony,
crazy.
Like these guys are untouchable, but imagine
it's crazy to think about. Yeah, I mean, you could get a Dylan Cease easily for that, but Cease is a rental. Do you really want to do that? Like you said, though, I think the clubhouse part is big to this now, because you mentioned the AL being wide open. I agree, but the AL East is, like we said a few weeks ago, a gauntlet right now if you look at those rosters. So you don't want to go into the regular season with a little bit of clubhouse issue. You want all your guys to be happy and just ready and focused on the season, not outside noise. So, like, they've got to nip this in the bud somehow. Hopefully the front office, I mean, John Henry's wife posted that picture of him after the Bregman signing, smoking a cigar in front of their fireplace, like just looking like, look at what I did. Well, it's up to him and some other guys now to make sure this doesn't get out of hand. If there is another move that they feel like they have to make, they can't wait very long. They've got to do this. Spring training is starting. Games are getting started very soon. Like, they need to be all on the same page before this gets going. And I mean, unless there's anything else you want to say about it, I think go ahead.
I do want to say, because the other conversation, obviously Boston, just like New York, is, the Red Sox on the tip of everybody's tongue. Everyone's getting excited for the Red Sox. There's conversation about Devers just being traded. And the comment that Cora made that saying Heim is in St. Louis, that to me says they're not happy with Devers' comments. And Alex Cora is a guy with a chip on his shoulder originally. He rubs people the wrong way, but he'll be honest to the media. He'll say how he's feeling. This could get ugly quickly. And if you look at the way the market has gone, 10 years, 313 left on the deal, et cetera, look at what they're paying annually for players. Is it that crazy to think that someone would take on the rest of that deal for the player that Rafi is? You know what I mean? Like,
someone would do it.
Someone would do it 100% if they're willing to move on from it. Because if the issue is a logjam, right? And then the issue is you have to find places to go. Wouldn't you rather have the controllable player like Christian Campbell or Roman Anthony and move on from Rafi Devers if he's going to be a difficult player to be in-house? Because eventually he's going to have to be a DH, whether he wants to or not. That is in his 10 years from now. He's going to play DH. He's not playing third base in 2030. It's just not happening.
Yeah, I mean, the Red Sox can't afford to do that. They are still getting killed daily for trading Mookie Betts. Like, you cannot now turn around and do that to Devers a couple years into this deal as well. I mean, I get other teams are drooling. I saw our boys at the DSG, Divine Sports Gospel, for the San Diego Padres already like putting mock trades up for bringing Devers there.
It won't stop the articles from coming out. That's the thing with Boston media, similar to New York. They're going to make a story out of this. I haven't listened to Boston sports radio, but I'm sure that's the conversation. You got the Boston guys calling on with their thick accents talking about trading Devers because he's being difficult. That's happening right now as we speak.
Of course. And they opened themselves up to that with that. Like, man, like Devers had to know, the Red Sox had to know that question was going to be asked of Devers today. You put him out in front of the media. Did you not prepare him for this scenario, or did you? And he's just annoyed about it listen, we've all been there where we've been annoyed about something, even in a work setting where there's times where our patience just runs out and maybe we do or say something to a certain person that we shouldn't, or just kind of, show our frustration a little bit to let them know, like, I'm not happy right now. And I don't think this is the right move. I think we've all been there. If you've been working at a certain job for a long enough time, you've probably made some kind of move like that just to, not go too far and tip the scales too far, but just let someone know, like, I'm not happy and I'm going to speak out about it a little bit. Like, I'm a good soldier. This is the second year in a row, though, for Devers. Last year, he had cameras on him and he chastised the Red Sox for not doing enough. Now he's pissed that they did too much and it's affecting where he might have to play. Right. So they got to get a hold of this dude real quick. They cannot afford to let this blow up.
We mentioned the other drama that's going on in the AL East. Marcus Stroman made it clear he will not pitch out of the bullpen, repeatedly stating, quote, I'm a starter. Obviously showing up to spring training. We have the Yankees with a deep rotation. I mentioned before what they did in the free agency with Max Fried, but he joins the rotation of Gerrit Cole, Carlos Rodón, Luis Gil, Clarke Schmidt. And obviously Marcus Stroman's role is in question. We knew that going in before he even showed up to spring training. He unfollowed the Yankees on Instagram, which is all the drama that comes with him. There's been trade speculation. We heard the conversation potentially that he was involved with an Arenado deal for St. Louis. And either way, it feels like the relationship is moving away from Stroman and the Yankees. It feels like this is a sinking ship as far as a copacetic situation. Aaron Boone hasn't ruled out a six-man rotation, but Stroman's refusal to shift to relief could just force the Yankees in a tough decision, similar to the Devers thing with less at stake, because Stroman obviously is not this crucial franchise player for the Yankees. But this is another chance for Aaron Boone to figure out a way to take control of the clubhouse. The criticism we had right here on the show about how we handled the Glaber situation. At some point, you just say, this is what we're asking of you. You're not in the rotation, you're going to pitch in the bullpen. And if not, we're moving on, or you're just not, send them down to AAA. You know what I mean? Like, if that is the case here, you have to play hardball. I mean, pun completely intended. If Stroman doesn't want to pitch in relief, and that's what's best of the team, and Cashman believes it's right, and Boone does too, what, we're going to force him to be a starter? And what, Clarke Schmidt's not supposed to have a spot because you think that you want to be a starter? I'm sorry. That's just not how it works.
Yeah, so I have a different perspective on this a little bit. To me, it is very easy. Marcus Stroman has become an easy target over the years. And a lot of that is his own doing. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, it's unfair. But in this respect, in this specific situation, obviously a lot of people, including myself, clipped that part and tweeted it out of when he said, I'm a starter, I'm a starter, I'm a starter. That interview was several minutes long, and that was in the middle of it. And there was a lot before and after that I think puts that in context. And I'm going to defend him a little bit here. He's a starting pitcher. I don't even think he profiles well for the bullpen unless you're going to pay him $18 million a year to be a mop-up guy. Like he could do that job. But is he going to go out there and get a few huge strikeouts with men on base? That's not really his game. The Yankees are the ones that brought him on for $18 million a year. Like, I kind of get it, Stroman's perspective here. He's heard all the talk leading up to spring training. His name once again dragged through the mud. Like, there's a lot of negativity toward Marcus Stroman. He finally gets to the place I think he always wanted to be, which is the Yankees. He kind of does the same thing that he has done everywhere, where he has a really good start to the season. The fans kind of embrace him. He wins some people over. And then he starts, fading a little bit. Never awful, but just kind of a decent pitcher instead of the sometimes great pitcher that we've seen. We saw the same thing at Citi Field with the Mets. And I think a little bit in Chicago as well. Like, there's moments of greatness. There's weeks of greatness. And then he kind of fades or gets hurt. Listen, I think he's partly right. I think he's a starting pitcher. For the Yankees, man, they're in between a rock and a hard place, because who are you trading this guy to? Like, you're going to have to eat the entire contract, if not 95% of it, to make him appealing or attach a decent prospect to him. Who do you think you're getting back for him? Nothing. Like, this is a situation where, Steve Cohen did this with Robinson Cano a few years ago, where he just ate a ton of money. And I know that's Cohen, right? And I know Hank is not exactly the guy that just throws money around these days. But you don't want this to affect your clubhouse. Marcus Stroman as an unhappy soldier is not a great soldier to have in your clubhouse. We've seen that other places. He made the remark of, like, listen, the only people I care about as far as an opinion of me goes is the other guys in the clubhouse, the other players. And if you go and ask them, like, we all have good relationships. And he might be telling the truth there, but I think it's only going to get worse and worse and worse if he's there without, like, a clearly defined role. Maybe the 6-man rotation does happen. I don't know where he goes if they try to trade him, but I'm going to take up for him for a little bit, because as soon as anything like that, where he's defending himself a little bit, comes out of his mouth, people are like a pack of wolves jumping on him. Whereas the Rafael Devers thing comes out today, same exact thing. And I know Devers maybe has earned a little more respect, but, like, I didn't see the same just vicious reaction from fans of, like, screw this guy, like, get him out, throw him out of town. I didn't see that. So I think there's a little bit of unfairness and just jumping the gun and looking for an opportunity to kill Marcus Stroman. Like, the guy has been a very solid pitcher for a long time now. Like, look at his track record. I kind of mentioned how he kind of comes and goes, fades a little bit. But, like, for the most part, he's been a very dependable starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. And again, the Yankees were the one who brought him in for that money. He didn't just kick the door down and say, I'm playing for you now. And after 1 year, they don't really have a spot for him anymore.
Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from. But the thing is, similar to my Devers criticism, I think that this conversation should have happened within. And I understand the media asked him, but there has to be a stock answer that would be fed by the PR team and just say, we're working out within. I'm open to wanting the team to win. You don't have to go and stand your ground and say, I'm a starter. Like Devers says, I don't want to play. I'm a third baseman. Like, there's a way to handle this, because it's going to blow up. New York media, Boston media, all this is going to be an issue. And you mentioned him being gone. I think the Yankees would pay the money just to not have him upset the clubhouse. And this is a byproduct of Plan B, because Max Fried obviously was the first big domino to fall post Juan Soto. Max Fried makes the rotation deeper. Obviously, Fried is going to take a paramount over everyone else in that rotation aside from Gerrit Cole, and everyone gets bumped out. And who's the odd man out? It's Marcus Stroman. So Fried wasn't probably on their bingo card if Juan Soto was staying as a Yankee. I believe that they overpaid for Max Fried as far as what things all shook up for. They tried to save face. We talked about it right here on the show. Fried makes him a better team, of course. And I think they're willing to probably look at it, like, close your eyes and put the math, like the Hangover meme. They're probably looking at the math equation and, like, add that number that Stroman's getting paid to Fried's contract and just move on and let him go pitch somewhere else, because you don't want him upsetting the clubhouse and messing up with the vibes. Because for the positive vibes he added to the team last year, because that's what he did. I mean, he was a clubhouse guy last year. He did everything the Yankees asked of him. We don't want it influencing in a bad way. And if he's unhappy, we watch it go poorly when he is unhappy. When things are well, things are well. But that's not saying he's not a pitcher that can contribute. It just might not be here in the Bronx if he's not willing to be flexible.
Very quickly, and then we can move on from the Stroman conversation. Is there a team out there that you think should be like calling the Yankees and not saying we're going to give you much, but saying like, hey, if you eat at least half of his contract and don't expect much back from us, we'll take him off your hands. Like, do you think there's a team out there that really could use him? He fits.
A few. First comes to mind is San Diego. Everything that they've done this weekend, when we'll talk about the next situation that leads right into it, feels like they're going to be probably staying in house with, instead of trading Dylan Cease and Michael King, and you add Nick Pivetta to the fold, all of a sudden you add Marcus Stroman to that rotation. I mean, I could see him contribute, especially in the pitcher's park, right? In a national league. I don't know. I could see Stroman fitting in well with the Padres.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of a team that just like, I mean, here's the thing. I'm thinking of a team that needs more depth in the rotation, but again, you don't want to trade him somewhere. You don't want the same exact situation where he's like the sixth guy, because that's not.
Could you see him like thriving in San Diego, the warm weather, and like him in that uniform? I feel like he would fit in nicely because he would slot in as their number 4, right? Cease, King, Darvish, and Stroman would be number 4, right? I would assume so.
Pivetta now,
so he'd be their 5 then. So
I mean, you have some other guys there, Waldron and Randy Vasquez, and I don't know if there's an obvious like, oh, he's definitely in the rotation. I think you might lend yourself to another situation there. Obviously, you wouldn't make the trade unless you knew you wanted him in the rotation. But even the Rangers come to mind as a team that like is good up front, but has some injury concerns. But again, you don't want to put him there in a situation where he could fall into the same category. I mean, Toronto, his old stomping grounds, could probably use him. I don't know if he wants to go back there, though. Sure. That's the other thing. Like, I could also see him being a little picky about where they trade him. I don't know if he has much say in that, but if a team is not sure if he's going to come over happily and be a happy part of the team, that just, continues to decrease the amount of options for the Yankees to talk to.
So we alluded to it. Nick Pivetta finalized a 4-year deal with the Padres, and we talked about the rotation: Dylan Cease, Michael King, Yu Darvish, Nick Pivetta, and some of the other names. The contract includes a $3 million signing bonus and a $1 million salary 2025, and opt-outs after 2026 and 2027. You go back to his time in Boston, reliable would be an understatement for sure. 28.9 strikeout rate, breaking pitches. He had a new sweeper last year, and look at Petco Park as a pitcher-friendly park. This is a surprise move a little bit here, because obviously we talked about them being sellers and moving on from this year, maybe trading Cease, trading King, and Pivetta puts them. It's not like a deal breaker that's going to be like, oh, they're breaking the bank for it, but Pivetta makes them a better team. And I think that's all that Padre fans are looking for at this.
Yeah, Nick Pivetta is an interesting case, man. Like, he turned down the qualifying offer from the Red Sox. I think it was a surprise that he got the offer, $21 million, something like that. Mm-hmm. And another guy that just didn't find the market that he thought he would, which was surprising, because if you remember back in early December, the free agent market for pitchers for the first month or so was crazy. You saw Yusei Kikuchi getting a ton of money, and that was like kicked it off, and it was just one guy after the next. Frankie Montas, who was a conversation to be had tonight as well. 2 years, $34 million from the Mets, which is already backfiring. That's another story. And Pivetta, I don't know what other offers were out there. My guess is maybe he did get some earlier in free agency and maybe turned some offers down that he shouldn't have. But I like the fit in San Diego, because he does not have to be the 1, 2, the 3. Like, he's a guy who the strikeout rate is impressive, and there are days where you'll watch him and be like, holy crap, this guy's an ace. And then you'll watch him the next game and he's so mediocre. High strikeout guy, but a guy that's like never pitched to under a 4 ERA. As far as I can remember, I'd have to bring up the stat line, but he's always a 4 ERA guy, if not higher. So he's, good in San Diego because he doesn't have to be the guy, but improves their depth, a proven starter. So I like the fit for him. A weird contract structure with the $1 million this year.
I was going to ask you that as well. I mean, $19 million in 2026, 14 and 18 for the next couple years after that. Structured weird, and there's opt-outs involved as well after the 26 and 27. People are just being creative at this point with these deals. I think that I hear that people are just like, let's just try different things. But obviously, Pivetta was willing to take the money in later years, so it doesn't affect the Padres in the immediate. Maybe that was important to them to not go over the luxury tax threshold that they're obviously been eyeing. So maybe Pivetta keeps them under it, or I have to look at whatever the metric is to see if they're over or not. Because we know the ownership and what they're doing over there with all the drama with the family of who's going to take ownership. that was important to them. So I don't know. I think this pushes them in a direction that they can at least be competitive. Are they going to win the NL West? Hell no. I mean, like the Dodgers have that on lock, but we want people to have a reason to go out to the ballpark outside of Petco just being a beautiful spot to spend your summer nights. You want them to be a competitive team, and they got a lot of talent on the team. You know, there's a lot of guys out there. So we want the best option, and Pivetta seems like it fits the mold here, and he's willing to. He seems like he wanted to be there because, as you said, he turned down the qualifying offer in Boston. Maybe he feels like it'd be a better fit in San Diego. And what better way to spend a couple years in San Diego, right?
Yeah, not so bad. I mean, his best 2 years of his career have been the last 2 years. 4.04 ERA in 2023, 38 games played. I think there was some relief outings in that year because that's, way too high a number for just being a starter. 27 games played last year, 4.14 ERA. So again, that kind of low 4 ERA type of pitcher so far is what you hope for him, like the best type of year. But who knows? Maybe San Diego unlocks something from him. We've seen that before where a guy changes places and they find something that the other team didn't. So I think there's still that talent and that potential there where maybe we haven't seen the best of Nick Pivetta yet.
So we're going to end the show with our reaction to the first weekend of college baseball with some quick hitters here. We got John Means signing with the Cleveland Guardians. Frankie Montes was shut down for 6 to 8 weeks with a high-grade lat strain. The Royals extend their GM. Their extends a 2026 option on Quartaro. Mike Trout moving to right field. And we got Perdomo late in the news cycle here, extended in Arizona over there. Any immediate thoughts outside of, obviously, the bad news for your Mets with Frankie Montes being shut down for 6 to 8 weeks?
Love the Means to Cleveland. I thought he'd end up back in Baltimore, to be honest, on like a 1-year kind of deal. But he's a guy, I mean, an unfortunate injury history these last couple of years, but at his best is a very, very reliable pitcher and does it differently than most of the other guys out there nowadays. But who knows? The injury history he has suffered the last couple of years is pretty devastating. So we'll see. But I like the risk. Cleveland's a good place to go in that way. Montas, like you mentioned, I think the Mets have some obvious pivots. Obviously, McGill is there and can step into the rotation as the number 5. But there's also Jose Quintana, who's still a free agent, who was great for them the last couple of years, especially last year. I mean, he pitched 6 shutout innings in a playoff game against Milwaukee. Like, I know he's up there in age, but you don't necessarily need him to be super special, just reliable. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that. I know some people mentioned, Stroman traded for Starling Marte, Mets and Yankees. It makes sense. That's not happening. I love the Royals move. JJ Piccolo, I've raved about him for a while now since this show began, so he deserved it. Trout moving to right field. I hope there's some DH mixed in there. That's what I would say about that. Get him off his feet sometimes. Everyone wants a full season of Mike Trout. The whole baseball world does.
Didn't Trout come out and say I'm an outfielder multiple times? I'm joking.
I'm an
outfielder.
To be fair, he's had that attitude in the past a little bit without kind of saying it like that with that attitude. But I feel like he's stuck to his guns for a while. But I think he finally kind of sees like, all right,
for sure.
I get why they're trying to move me off here. And the other thing, Perdomo extended in Arizona is interesting. I feel like he deserves it. But like, I just keep on thinking about how that affects Jordan Lawler. Again, we're talking about these young players continuously being blocked. Maybe they see Perdomo as more of a move around type of guy once Lawler takes over. But that's my curiosity there.
Absolutely. And Arizona is an interesting team to watch this year, similar to Texas and what they did, obviously, in 2023. Arizona, to me, was a team that they disappointed in 2024. They just missed the playoffs. I think they could be a threat in the NL this year. Someone to watch, obviously, led by Corbin Carroll. We'll definitely talk a lot about them. But we're going to end our segment here and end our show talking about the college baseball season as we exit out. All right, here for our opening weekend of college baseball. And obviously, we were watching the college weekend pretty closely. 6 top 25 teams lost to unranked opponents. We had some exit velocity stuff, and we got some aces delivering elite performances. So just to start with the upsets, number 4, Virginia fell to Michigan. Number 10, Duke lost to Cincinnati. Number 14, Texas could not handle Louisville, I should say. And number 20, Kentucky, number 22, Arizona, and number 25, Indiana also suffered opening day losses. So can't say that college baseball doesn't have the upsets, dude. Some of those teams were not expected to lose opening weekend.
Yeah, and I'll expand on that a little bit. Cincinnati took 2 of 3 from Duke, and the only game that Duke took was a 12-inning game, so they almost got swept. And Michigan, like, Holy crap, man. They're
What a
4-0
game.
now. They won another one. And a couple of those wins, you mentioned Virginia, the number 2 team in the country, and also beat Stetson today, who had a nice start as well. Like, they're a legit club as well. So Michigan kind of out of nowhere, Cincinnati as well. I think I saw Cincinnati in the updated top 25 for the first time maybe ever. I think that's what I read.
Yeah.
So some cool things to see some upsets early on.
So the other thing that I saw was the exit velocities, and Clemson versus Oklahoma State showcased Major League Baseball level power. Clemson's Tristan Becerra hit 115.7 mile per hour line drive, and 7 players in that game confined for 905 plus mile per hour batted balls. And this is something, Devin, that no MLB team did in a single game last season. So obviously metal bats considered in the swings,
Yeah.
but this is something that we need to at least look at because exit velocities are being studied. And this is shortening the pipeline for college players to major leagues. And it starts obviously with these exit velocities. Again, metal bats considered, but still got these players out there doing their damn thing.
Yeah, you got to be careful out there too, man. Playing at the hot corner, playing as pitcher, like for those comebackers coming off the metal bat, that's scary stuff when these guys are hitting the ball that hard. I'll touch on one thing quickly as we go down the list of notes for college that we wanted to get to. So you and I, we started our fandom kind of committing to a few teams here. You, Campbell, and myself, Wake Forest, but also Delaware as my actual alma mater. Wake being where my dad went to school for 2 years. Wake dominant, scored about 1 million runs. I know they're playing inferior opponents in the beginning of the season in Marist and Long Island University, but like still, dude, just unreal, hitting the crap out of the ball. Marek Houston, the shortstop there, is just off to a tremendous start. 3 home runs. I think he's something like 11 for 14, somewhere around there. A bunch of RBIs, runs scored, an absolute stud. Look for his name to continue to go up draft boards. Hit 326 last year as well. So this is as a junior, that was as a sophomore, and not a flash in a pan. So that was the positive of our fandom. Me on the Delaware side, real rough start. And like we said, we're having Coach Mamula from Delaware on here on Wednesday night. It will come out Thursday morning. So hopefully they get a win here on Tuesday so he's in a little better mood when we talk to him. But a rough start. We'll see what happens in conference play. And then talk about what you saw from your boys at Campbell to start.
So swept by UC Santa Barbara, and obviously UC Santa Barbara ranked number 22 and Campbell not being ranked. So expected probably to have a tough time with them. The one thing I did pull out of UC Santa Barbara was Tyler Brenner of the Gauchos. He was their ace. He was perfect through 3 innings, but he exited due to cold weather tightness. So all the college baseball sites and media were talking about him because they're hoping that nothing is wrong with him. He's big, obviously, to watch as their ace. And moving on for the Camels, they're going to East Carolina I think they're actually going to be at home playing East Carolina tomorrow night. So if you're listening this Tuesday morning, we'll see if they can get their win at Jim Perry Stadium. So looking forward to it. I've been enjoying them. We're going to try to get Chris Marks on the show. And, obviously it's some tough draw in the beginning of the year, but they'll be back on that camel sitting on the hump and trying their best to make do. And it's a long season, so I'm sure they're going to be back at it.
For sure. That's the thing. It is a long season, plenty of time to rebound. And I do think, like I kind of said before, let's see what these teams do in conference play. I feel like that's most important to get them going. I will say a few other just notes, things that stood out to me. Jamie Arnold, who I know you'll probably talk about as well, Florida State pitcher, very, very high MLB draft prospect, could be as the top 5 kind of guy, maybe top 3. Man, just watching him, you can give me the statistics and the analytics and all that stuff and the movement on his pitches. You can just watch if you're an MLB fan, just put on some highlights of the kid. And I think you'll be convinced pretty quickly, like, oh yeah, he looks the part in every single way. If you haven't seen him, go look for him. Gary Sheffield's son plays at FSU, I believe, as well. Same exact bat flick. It's unbelievable. Like he's reincarnated. Here's a name from a smaller school. Justin Mitrovic pitched the first game for Elon against Texas A&M, the number 1 team in the country, absolutely loaded. Held his own, man. I think 5 shutout innings there before he got taken out. They ended up losing the game once the relief pitchers came in. But I looked back. He was kind of getting on some people's radar last year. So he's a smaller school name to look out for, a guy that could kind of crawl up draft boards a little by little, a name to watch there. Oregon State caught my eye. I just feel like I'm reading a different name of a stud on that team every single tweet I see. One that caught my eye was this Dax Whitney kid, a pitcher, freshman. came from Idaho, which I don't know how many guys are coming from Idaho as big time pitchers or hitters for that matter. Throws 98 miles per hour already. I mean, I'm looking forward to watching him over the next few years. We could be sitting here in 2 years talking about him as a top 5 prospect if what we see continues and if he stays healthy. And then the only other thing I'll say is a couple of the Golden Spikes candidates, high draft kind of guys, are living up to their name early. Drew Burris had a walk-off grand slam for Georgia Tech a couple days ago. Jace Laviolette, 3 homers in 3 games. So they're doing what they do.
Yeah, you mentioned Jamie Arnold. I was going to mention him. Gabe Gakel of Arkansas also had a great showing as well. But leading out here, my finishing note for the college opening weekend was Florida Aces, Liam Peterson. He was dominant. Yeah, obviously a lot of hype on him potentially in the 2026 MLB draft. He went out there and delivered, striking out 11 over 6 shutout innings while allowing just 2 hits and a walk against Air Force. It was the most strikeouts by a Florida Gator pitcher in a season opener since 2022. He was pounding the zone, man. He looked like, you talk about just the optics and feeling of an ace. He was dominant, and Liam Peterson is a name to be watching out for, especially next year. So as we approach this time next year, people will be talking about him as a top draft pick, maybe even number 1 overall.
Yeah, just to follow up on what I said before, I want to get these stats right. Marek Houston, shortstop for Wake Forest, named the ACC Player of the Week. I think I saw he was the Golden Spikes Player of the Week as well. I guess they do that too. He's hitting .714 to start the season, 10 for 14, 13 RBIs, 11 runs, 3 home runs, and a double. I mean, stud. I'm looking forward to it. He's a guy I can tell, like, I'm gonna have my radar on him all season long, and looking forward to see how he progresses.
So as we head out the door here, of course, you guys can check out the episode later today and all the great Texas Rangers conversation happening in just a little bit. You can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at TableSetters Pod. We appreciate the support. We're getting closer and closer to the season, and we're looking forward to previewing opening day. Devin and I are talking about potentially doing some division previews or figure out a way to just kind of do broad strokes about our predictions. So we have it out there somewhere in the ether in conversation so that we can be adequately prepared and have our predictions so that we can say if we were right or wrong in a couple months.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll be wrong about a lot of things, but that's the fun of it. We look back. I mean, I remember one of our first episodes last year, I went on a rant about how Mark Vientos wasn't a super important piece for the New York Mets, and I was very happily wrong by the end of the season about that.
So again, we're going to be dropping the episode 62 with Gerrit Sandler in just a little bit here. So again, we dropped this episode this morning, probably noon. We'll drop Gerrit Sandler's episode. Hopefully you guys enjoy everything he brought to the table. And we'll be back next week. We'll be back later this week, actually, with the Delaware Hens episode. Greg Mamula talking all things Delaware Hens. And we'll be back talking all things baseball after a while.
High fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh!